2010, it's coming soon, and that means it's time for another federal census. Every 10 years, the government counts every living person in the United States. Questionnaires will be mailed out in March, and today Commerce Secretary Gary Locke took the wraps off a new program aimed at instructing school children about the census, why it's done, how it works, and why it's important. He joins us now from Washington. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Pimm.
Can you tell us what makes the 2010 census more important than previous census efforts?
Well, it's not any more important. This is a requirement of the U.S. Constitution going back to 1790. And in fact, the very first veto by a U.S. president was over legislation passed by the early Congress over the census. And it was the subject of a big fight between Thomas Jefferson and Mr. Hamilton. But it's important that our school kids be involved in the census because of this constitutional requirement. It's no different than learning about the courts, the executive branch, the legislative branch, or the First Amendment, or the 14th Amendment. And of course, this is very, very important just for the allocation of federal funds and the drawing up of legislative boundaries and how many members of Congress each state will actually receive. But we also know that children are also a good purveyor of information to their parents, whether it's on recycling, whether it's on energy efficiency, and participating in this constitutional requirement, this constitutional duty, is equally important.
Mr. Secretary, talk a little bit about it from the parents' perspective. There's going to be a lot of hiring done by the Commerce Department in order to perfect the census, correct?
That's right. Starting in March, households all across America will be receiving a very short form questionnaire that they need to fill out. It's the shortest ever, 10 questions, only 10 minutes. But we also know from all these different surveys, whether sent out by private sector or other government agencies, that not everybody fills out the census or any type of questionnaire. And so we will be hiring almost 1 million people, a little over 1 million people, to go door to door, knocking on the doors of those who have not submitted their census form, probably around the 3rd or 4th week of April. We want people to fill out the census, reflect where they're living, how many people are living in the household as of April 1. But for those that don't respond, we need that information, so we'll be hiring over 1 million people from the specific neighborhoods, the communities, or whether it's New England. We're not going to be hiring people from California to go knocking on the doors in New England. We want people from the affected communities because they're recognized, they know the community, and people who answer the doors are more apt to respond if it's someone they know and trust. So these will be good-paying jobs as well.
Mr. Secretary, that whole idea of good-paying jobs couldn't come at a better time. What is your thought right now on the efforts to increase hiring in the United States? Do you have any thoughts having to do with small and medium-sized businesses which seem quite reluctant to go out and spend money or even hire new workers?
Well, thank goodness a lot of the leading economic indicators are pointing positively. We know that still, and the President is very concerned about the high unemployment rates. The recovery will not be complete in his eyes until every person who wants a job is able to get a job, and we're back to the good employment figures before this recession started. That's why we at the Department of Commerce are focused on helping companies sell more of their products and services, helping them be more viable, stronger, more competitive. And one of the key strategies is helping them sell their products and goods and services abroad. That can help us with our trade deficit. That can help us bring jobs to America. Here's an interesting statistic. 59% of all companies that export to only one country. If they make a terrific or product that's highly valued, let's say in Brazil, well, we need to help them sell that product or service in Hungary or in Vietnam or Korea. And so we are at the Department of Commerce focused on helping companies be stronger, more viable, more profitable, so that they therefore hire more people and at good family wage jobs. So we're really focusing on export promotion. That's one of the major activities of the Department of Commerce.
Mr. Secretary, albeit with government support, do you think that the government stimulus package is enough, or will we have to have a second stimulus package if indeed we decide that, well, there isn't enough government stimulus to keep growth going in the private sector?
Well, I think that the stimulus has already worked, and economists of all different political persuasions have remarked that it has made a difference. And the question, though, is, of course, you have to worry about the deficit. So if there is to be another stimulus, and that's being hotly discussed and very seriously considered within the administration, as well as the members of Congress, it needs to be very targeted, very specific, and we need to be very mindful of the deficit as well.
All right. I want to thank you very much, Commerce Secretary Gary Locke, coming to us from Washington, D.C., highlighting the new 2010 census beginning in March.